Master Player here. Welcome to another DM video log or vlog, whatever. And it's story time, all you NPCs out there. So last time we were discussing things about the characters and a little bit about the story and the world. The last couple videos, and now I gotta run a game. So, well, right now things have gone in the past, so I've already done some of these things, obviously, and hopefully it doesn't catch up too quickly to my current game. So, but I needed to run a game. I got all these players, I have their characters, and now it's time to run something. So, last year at Gen Con, it was crunch time, let's get something, let's run something. So, I had to come up with something really quick. Now, remembering the Adventurers Guild, and what I wanted to do, what I wanted to accomplish with that, as far as the players are concerned, I decided that would be a good idea to probably, let's see, I gotta do something easy and yet something that's could potentially fit with my story, my overstory. So, the players were contracted as, guard duty for a caravan, and the best thing for them to be able, to fight whatever, guard, protect, whatever. At that time I didn't have a specific goal, specific task. Just, guard the caravan. Classic adventurer / mercenary, hey, we need a job, something to do, shtick. So they're tasked to protect this caravan. Caravan's heading from the main city to the mining town, and it has supplies. I'm not specific on everything that it has. So that's going to the mining town. So everybody, is on board. Everything's great. And about towards the end of the journey, they are attacked by goblins. Now, the best part about this is that the goblins were in hiding, obviously, and it was an ambush. So what I ended up doing is I had enough goblins, so each player character had something to do, no matter what. But it was night. Nobody was, there were people that weren't dressed, weren't ready. People were sleeping. So not everybody was well prepared for this. So we're looking at the group, the team as a whole. And the goblins are archers, so they've got short bows. They're firing short bows arrows into the camp, and which is causing a lot of issues. So the players are fighting them off. The one thing they almost forget about, which I'm happy they didn't, was the NPC driver. The driver of the wagon, itself. It wasn't a full caravan, it was just basically one heavily burdened wagon. And luckily to the players and everybody else, they decided, some of them remembered the fact that he's not a fighter of any kind. He's not a hero, he's not an adventurer, or anything else like that. So they make sure they save him and protect him, which is fantastic. So they right away pull out their, we're heroes cards kind of a thing, and make a difference. And that is awesome, and I really, really like that. They didn't have to work very hard at it, and I didn't have to coax them into it. They just right away picked up the cue and ran with it, which was fantastic. I really, really like that. So they do defeat the goblins. They do take care of that. And the reason why they were going with this special wagon load is because another one was lost. Now, at this time, I had no real reason, goal, or anything why the other one was lost. Whether it was attacked, stolen, burned to the ground, I have no idea. I was just, doing a basic story, trope for the most part. At least they didn't all meet in an inn. So they had a goal. They have something to look forward to, and they had to make sure the wagon makes it. So the wagon does make it, and unfortunately, that's the end of the game. I didn't have a chance to do a whole lot. It was mostly combat. Everyone was learning the system, learning how combat works, learning what they can do, learning more about their characters, and they did succeed, and they did a fantastic job at it, I have to admit. I was very, very happy with them and their tasks and their goals. So after that, that was the end of the game. Well, that was for convention. like I said, we're at Gen Con. So next game, people actually wanted me to run it again, a little bit more frequently. I'm like, okay, I can do this. So the next game, I had to come up with, let's continue. So the players at this point had to, unload the cart and investigate the missing other cart, the missing wagon that wasn't, that I mentioned last game. At this point, I decided that the whole missing wagon is actually just a test. It's a test of the players' investigation skills, their ability to think, their ability to act, their ability to work with authority figures. That's the biggest one because they're going to have to be doing that, and work with local resources. So after all of this, I had 2 players that couldn't make the game. Come to find out, I have a player that's never going to make another game. So I have them on a separate, they got to take the other wagon back. Sure, why not? It only took a few days. It's just something for them to do. It's unloaded, so, but because they were attacked and everything, they decided to hedge their bets and unload quickly and dump the wagon back off. So I decided to start leveraging a little bit more of a bigger story. And I wasn't sure yet exactly what I was going to do with that, a bigger story, or how I was going to run a bigger story at this point. Because again, as a pickup game, it was limited, but I don't want to just limit myself to a small little rinky-dink. I want to have a story. I'm going to give people a story, whether it's just a pickup game or not. I don't care. I don't care if it's not a full-time game. People are going to want to play it, and I hate doing dungeon crawls. I hate doing that kind of stuff. If I can make a game less like a video game and more like a story experience, I'm doing it. Which requires NPC interaction. It requires more complicated story elements. Not kill monsters, get loot. So what I did is I started to have the players. That's when I came up with, the wagon was actually just a test, and so I was working on what else I can do about that. So the wagon is a test. Yes, I got that one. That's easy. So, and they were looking at different options about what the goblins, how the goblins were involved. Well, I made it a point that the goblins actually were not part of the test. That really is an issue. And then I made the goblins be coming from the west side of the bog. So the goblins actually have, territory or something out there that they raid from or whatever. And I thought that would be a fantastic idea to do something like that, to expand on my setting, my story at the same time. So the goblins attacked, and they retreated back into possibly beyond the bog. So the players are investigating the bog. And at this time, I decided to also expand my story a little bit further, trying to plan ahead. That's the hard part, is planning ahead, because in all honesty, I don't want to limit the story, for one, and I do have an ultimate goal, but at the same time, I'm going to try to make it as complicated as possible. So, because I need them to put pieces together, and I need them to be wrong and right at the same time. I need them to come up with conclusions that are completely wrong, and then come up with conclusions that are completely right. So, and then question it. It's important. They need to question what they find. They need to question what they've decided, or the clues that they've discovered. They need to question the pieces of the puzzle. So, and it's great because so far up to this point, they've kind of changed gears several times. So I've been doing a good job. So they're investigating this bog, and they find this small little shack in the middle of the bog, and in the shack has a skeleton. The skeleton is of a kobold. Well, there haven't been any known kobold sightings, in generations. So we're talking, could have been hundreds of years. Generations. I didn't want to throw out a specific number just in case I needed to alter my timeline. So that's the other thing. I've been extremely vague on a lot of things because I don't know how far I'm going to take this. I don't know how specific I need to get. So I'm leaving it very open. And so I said, it's been generations since they've ever seen a kobold. They examined the skull and were able to determine that it was in fact a kobold. And they're thinking the kobolds are in the mountains. So, which is true, kobolds are in the mountains. kobolds are attracted to dragons and will worship dragons. So that's a very good angle. It's a very simple angle, and that's exactly what has occurred. There's a kobold tribe that is worshiping the dragon that is in the pass. That's guarding over, taking over. I don't know the right word for it, but that's hanging out in the pass. So now I've got kobolds included. I added something else to the story. The kobold skeleton is a nice random bit, because why is there a kobold skeleton? That's a good question. So I've got that big question now, and then going further with it, they found it in a small little shack in the middle of the bog. Well, the shack, which none of the players were able to determine at the time, was something that trappers might use, or that smugglers might use to hide things, or thieves. So it's like a small little blind. So it's a very basic building. Nothing super advanced, nothing super exciting, but the players didn't make that connection. They couldn't tell that this little shack was in fact a potentially illegal location for illicit activities, or not illegal location, but a location for illicit activities. So they missed that part, which is fine. That's okay. If they would have gotten it, then I would have had to been able to open up another story element about other locations like this. So far, I don't have to now, except they're watching this and they're gonna figure that out. Oops. So I've got them running this chase, and and it takes a whole game session, and the next game little piece is the other player that is playing that ran off to the wagon. Well, the wagon is attacked yet again by goblins, and he bravely decides to stay and fight the goblins. And he's a warlock. He's my wood elf warlock, and the human fighter takes the wagon driver away for safety. So, and they already have a designated path they're gonna take, and they're gonna meet up a little bit further down the road. So they're basically gonna split and scatter, and then meet back up. Well, he defeats the goblins, and comes to find out there was only one. The rest of them were illusions, and so somebody was using powerful illusion magic. And there was a note on the goblin which he kept, which basically said, use this to, or I forgot what the specifics were at the time of the note, but so obviously there's somebody else, manipulating or controlling or paying whatever the goblins. So the goblins so I got another story element. The goblins are being egged on. Perfect. And he finds the other player character and the driver. Well, he doesn't find the driver at all. The driver's missing. So the wagon driver's gone. The other player character's dead, with a burning hole in his chest. No idea how, no idea why. He's got nothing to work with. So he takes the body, grabs the wagon, goes back to the mining town. And then now the players have two issues. And they're now becoming big issues. So what happens is that the player characters are now sent, or a story element. I'm like, okay, I gotta do something. The other characters are going to be sent back to the main city. They need to go back to the main city to take this other fellow adventurer's body back, as well as report on the goblin activities. And the mayor of the mining town, who is a dwarf, she actually explains to the players that, well, the wagon part was a test, and we cannot complete this test right now because we now have a serious issue that you need to take care of. So the players now know that they're going to be tested. That's foreshadowing for later. That they're going to be tested. And I need to make sure, again, foreshadowing and other storytelling elements are very, very important. So, like I said, I've got them now that they know that they're being tested. Whether they make that connection or not, I don't know. And so they gotta go back to the main city. Now, this is more of a storytelling. This isn't much of how I develop the story as much. But again, most of it is I'm building the blocks to make a good story, and I have to have certain things that get accomplished. So one, they have to make a connection with, I now have many potential villains and issues. Like I said, one of them is they've got a goblin problem. Yes. And I've now established that there's another area beyond the bog that's going to have goblins. and at the same time, that area is going to have, past that area, around that area, is going to be orcs. So, because I have to have a way for orc raiders to happen, and I've decided that the orcs are going to be ships. They're going to use ships, boats, like long boats. They're going to raid off from long fishing boats, long boats and stuff. So I think that would be a good idea. That's going to mix things up a little bit. So I've got that one going for me now. So that we've got orcs that do by boats. They're going to be coast-based. And then I've got goblins. So I've got my classic villains, my kobolds. They've all been introduced. And I have a tie-in with my dragon overstory. That's fantastic. I've got a tie-in with my with the Adventurers Guild. That's a plus, with different tests and things like that. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to develop a larger story, and I got to do it piecemeal because, again, it's a pickup game. So I don't have a dedicated, we're going to play it this time, we're going to play it that time, we're going to play it this day, that day. So, again, I'm not investing a lot in the specifics. So I'm not developing a dedicated timeline. I'm not even having developed NPC names. That's how basic I've done this. Oh, yeah, construction. And so, I'm doing what I can to make it an interesting story, at least. So there's certain elements that are kind of vague and kind of bad, deliberately. So, but in the meantime, so I've got this story that's going with the players being, of course, they're adventurers. They have a duty to, well, they're not adventurers yet. They're going to be adventurers. So they have a duty to do what's right. They have a duty to do their best for the people. And now I've got a goblin threat. I've got another power that's either controlling or manipulating the goblins or something. And I've introduced kobolds, and I've created a spot for those orcs. So right now I'm doing pretty good in my story for my needs and my wants to accomplish. So, and basically from there, we'll just take it from there, and we'll start next video off with basically what I'm going to do next to get the player characters more involved and more invested in this Adventurers Guild, because I need to get them invested. So far I've introduced an overstory that is going to be more complicated than just we go kill the dragon. And steps in between for the players to level up, and players to gain experience, and players to help develop their story. And then, also from there, I'm working with all the other aspects of, I want to have the players become involved, I want the players to be invested a little bit, and I also have a player character who has told me a little bit about his backstory, and we're working on details on what happened with his backstory. That would be the wizard that had the soldier background, who is, he was part of the militia and he isn't anymore. So we're working on his backstory a little bit, and the reason why he learned magic. And I don't know how that's going to tie in yet, if it's going to tie in, but I've come to I've already developed a lot of the information, and I've created part of the situation that occurred, which means I have the villain that they couldn't stop. And I don't know if that's going to come into play later or not. It might. I'm working on that still. So, because again, I'm trying to tell a bigger tale here, and I want to intertwine some of the elements from people's backgrounds, because if you're going to spend time and develop a background for your character that actually has interesting story elements to it, that is open, it isn't just, I wrote this fantastic, I had a player that used to write this fantastic story, pages and pages long, with a result, a conclusion, everything. So there was it just explained where his character was at. It didn't explain he had no growth, there was nothing. So it was just, storytelling for storytelling's sake. He didn't leave anything open to be developed. And now I've got, when I do have players that have parts open for development, I want to use it because obviously they spent their time to create these stories, and I'm gonna, this is a symbiotic relationship. I create a story, they create a story. Hey, let's work this together. I have no problems with that. So I'm gonna work on that, and work on some of those details. And like I said, in the next video, we're gonna cover the next part of the Adventurers Guild. What I'm going to introduce with that, and part of its history, and part of its information, because I got to develop that next. So. And if any of you, my NPCs out in the world, have any ideas or any suggestions, please put them in the comments, send me a message, however you want to do it. That way, you know, I would like to share, you know, the story with many people and keep it going from there. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next video.